The crystal chandeliers of the Beverly Grand Hotel cast fractured light across 500 faces. Politicians in tailored suits. Tech executives pretending to care about underprivileged youth. Celebrities holding champagne flutes like props. All of them gathered under the guise of charity, none of them asking why a Korean billionaire would donate $8 million to a cause that would never see half that money. Chairman Park Jin-woo stood at the podium, silver-haired and immaculate in a navy suit that cost more than most people earned in a year. His speech was practiced perfection. Education for underserved communities. Bridging cultural divides. Building a better Los Angeles. Every word designed to land softly, to reassure, to make people forget that his shipping companies moved more than electronics through the port of Long Beach. The audience applauded on cue. Flash photography painted the room white. Park smiled the smile of a man who had never needed to raise his voice to end a life. Then she stepped forward. An elderly black woman in a simple gray dress, moving through the crowd with the kind of calm that comes from having nothing left to fear. Security noticed her immediately. Two men in dark suits shifted position, hands moving toward concealed earpieces. Park's head of security, a Korean man named Cho with eyes like black ice, began moving along the perimeter. Park saw her approach. For a man who had survived 3 assassination attempts and a hostile takeover that left 7 bodies in a warehouse fire, his ability to read threat levels was instinctive. This woman carried no weapon. She moved with purpose but not aggression. Her hands were visible. Her face was composed. She stopped 10 feet from the stage. The applause died in scattered confusion. Conversation stuttered into silence. Park stood perfectly still, his expression neutral, his mind running calculations faster than the security team could converge on her position. She looked directly at him. Not with anger. Not with desperation. With certainty. My granddaughter has your birthmark. The room seemed to contract. 500 people holding their breath without knowing why. Cho was already moving, but Park raised one hand. A minimal gesture. The security team froze mid-step. Park descended from the stage. Each step measured. His face revealed nothing. To the audience, this looked like charitable engagement. To the 4 men positioned throughout the ballroom, all of them part of his inner circle, all of them aware of what the birthmark meant, this was a code red scenario unfolding in slow motion. He stopped in front of her. She was perhaps 70. Her eyes were sharp. Her posture spoke of a woman who had raised children through hardship and buried people she loved. You have 60 seconds, Park said quietly. His accent was minimal, his English flawless. Around them, the crowd began to murmur. Phones were emerging. This would be recorded. Every word mattered. A crescent shape, the woman said. Left shoulder blade. Your blood carries it. So does my granddaughter. Park's expression did not change, but something shifted behind his eyes. The birthmark was not public knowledge. It was not in medical records. It was known only to family, to the succession council, to the men who had sworn oaths written in all the traditions that American law recognized. You're mistaken, Park said, but his tone carried no conviction. He was buying time. Processing. I raised that girl, the woman continued. Her mother was my daughter. 25 years ago, she loved a Korean man who disappeared. She died when the baby was 6. I've kept that child safe ever since. And 3 months ago, she asked me about the mark on her back. So I started looking. And I found you. Park's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Around them, security had formed a loose perimeter. Cho was speaking into his earpiece. The event coordinator was trying to redirect attention, encouraging people to move toward the silent auction tables. Park made a decision. You'll come with me, he said. Not a request. He turned to Cho. Private room. No recording devices. Send Kim and Director Yoon. The woman nodded once. She had expected this. She followed as Park walked toward a service corridor, Cho and 2 security personnel flanking them. Behind them, the gala attempted to resume, but the damage was done. Phones were already uploading footage. By tomorrow, entertainment blogs would run headlines about an eccentric woman disrupting a charity event. By tomorrow night, Park's intelligence network would have scrubbed most of it. But inside the organization, in the rooms where real power moved like water finding cracks, the message was already spreading. Someone claimed bloodline. Someone knew about the mark. And the chairman had not immediately denied it. In a private conference room stripped of electronics, Park sat across from the woman. Kim Minute-J, his consigliere, stood by the door. Director Yoon, who oversaw territorial operations, remained silent in the corner. Both men were reading Park's face for instruction. "Your name?" Park said. "Dorothy Williams." "And your granddaughter?" "Maya. Maya Williams. She's 24. She's studying social work at UCLA. She doesn't know who you are. She doesn't know what you are. And I intend to keep it that way." Park leaned back slightly. His mind was already 25 years in the past, pulling details from memory that he had buried under layers of strategic necessity. "Tell me about the mother." Dorothy Williams did not hesitate. She had prepared for this moment for 3 months, ever since she had connected fragments of her daughter's past to the face of a billionaire appearing on Korean news networks. Her name was Christine. Christine Williams. She was 21. Working 2 jobs. Taking night classes. In 1999, she met a man at a restaurant in Koreatown. He never told her his real name. She called him James. He was kind to her. Respectful. Different from the boys she'd known. Park's face remained neutral, but his fingers rested motionless on the table. A tell. Kim noticed it. Director Yoon's eyes narrowed slightly. "They dated for 7 months, Dorothy continued. He'd disappear for weeks at a time. Business trips, he said. She didn't ask questions. Then one day he told her it was too dangerous. That people were watching him. That she needed to forget him. 2 weeks later, she found out she was pregnant." Dorothy's voice remained steady, but her hands tightened slightly in her lap. She tried to find him. Went back to places they'd met. Asked around Koreatown. Nothing. People acted like they'd never seen him. Some looked scared when she showed his picture. So she stopped looking. She had that baby alone. Named her Maya. And she loved that little girl more than anything in this world. "How did she die?" Park's question was quiet. "Car accident. Maya was 6. After that, it was just me and the baby." Dorothy's eyes met Park's directly. "I did what Christine would have wanted. Kept her safe. Kept her out of trouble. Made sure she had opportunities. She's a good girl. Smart. Got a scholarship. Wants to help people." Park processed this in silence. 25 years ago. 7 months. A woman he had cared for more than strategy allowed. He had known her as Christine. He remembered her laugh. He remembered the way she had looked at him like he was simply a man, not a position, not a successor, not the heir to an organization that had roots deeper than California statehood. He also remembered the phone call that had changed everything. It had been his uncle then, the previous chairman, who had delivered the news. Internal war. 3 captains attempting a coordinated takeover. Loyalties fracturing. And intelligence that enemies had identified Christine. That they planned to use her as leverage. The choice had been presented cleanly: remove the vulnerability or watch her die slowly to prove a point. Park had made the call himself. One of his most trusted men had delivered the message. Leave Los Angeles. Take money. Disappear. She had refused the money. She had asked if he was in danger. He had not answered. She had left anyway. 2 months later, his uncle's sources reported that she had miscarried. The pregnancy had terminated naturally. No heir existed. The vulnerability was closed. Park had not verified because verification meant exposure. And exposure meant death. So he had buried it. Focused on surviving the internal war. Emerged as chairman 3 years later when his uncle died of what the death certificate called heart failure. He had never allowed himself to think about Christine Williams after that. Until now. "You said she has the birthmark," Park said carefully. "Left shoulder blade. Crescent shape. Looks almost like a new moon. I've seen it since she was a baby. Didn't think anything of it until she asked me about it. Started researching. Found old articles about Korean organized crime families. Succession based on bloodline. And then I saw your picture at a tech conference. You're older now. But I recognized the eyes. Kim shifted his weight slightly. This was moving into dangerous territory. If this woman had connected these dots, others could. If she had research, there were trails. Park read the room. He raised one hand, a minimal gesture. Kim and Director Yoon stepped outside. The door closed. Park and Dorothy sat alone. Why come to me? Park asked. Why not the police? Why not the media? Dorothy smiled faintly. It was not a warm smile. Because I'm not stupid. I know what you are. I know what happens to people who threaten you. But I also know what that birthmark means. Maya is your blood. Whether you want her or not. Whether you knew about her or not. And blood means something to men like you. It does. Then understand this, Dorothy said, leaning forward. I didn't come here to blackmail you. I didn't come here for money. I came here because 3 weeks ago, a man started following Maya home from campus. Because 2 weeks ago, someone broke into our apartment and didn't take anything. Because I know what happens when people like you have secrets that walk around breathing. Park's expression hardened. You think someone else knows? I think your world has eyes everywhere. I think if I figured it out, someone smarter and more connected could figure it out faster. And I think my granddaughter is in danger because of blood she didn't ask for. The room fell silent. Outside, the gala continued. Inside, a billionaire crime boss calculated probability matrices while an elderly woman waited for him to decide whether her granddaughter would live or die. Finally, Park spoke. I will verify your claim. If you're lying, you'll disappear cleanly. No pain. Professional courtesy for the audacity. If you're telling the truth, things become complicated. Complicated how? Because blood outranks ambition in my world. And there are men who have built their futures on the assumption that I have no heirs. Dorothy nodded slowly. So she's in danger either way. Yes, Park said. But if she is mine, then she is protected by more than you could ever provide alone. No one touches bloodline without consequences that echo for generations. He stood. The meeting was over. You'll be contacted within 48 hours. Do not speak to anyone. Do not return to your normal routine. A car will take you to a secure location. Maya will be told you're visiting a sick friend. She will be watched but not approached. Dorothy stood as well. And if the test proves it? Park looked at her with eyes that had ordered executions and negotiated treaties with equal efficiency. Then she becomes the most dangerous and most protected person in California. And you become the woman who changed the future of an organization that has existed longer than this country. He opened the door. Kim and Director Yoon entered immediately. Park gave quiet instructions in Korean. Both men's faces remained professionally blank, but the tension in their shoulders spoke volumes. As Dorothy was escorted out through a private exit, Park returned to the gala. He smiled. He shook hands. He posed for photographs. And in his mind, he was already initiating protocols that would either confirm a daughter he never knew existed or eliminate a threat before it could metastasize. Either way, the next 48 hours would determine whether his empire would pass to the men who had earned it through loyalty or to a 24-year-old social work student who had no idea her grandfather was one of the most dangerous men on the West Coast. The emergency council convened at 2 in the morning in a private office above a Korean barbecue restaurant in Koreatown. The restaurant was closed. The street was empty. 4 cars were parked in the back alley, each driver remaining with their vehicle, each driver armed and alert. Inside the upstairs room, 5 men sat around a table that had witnessed strategy sessions for territorial expansions, profit distributions, and the occasional vote on whether someone lived or died. Tonight's meeting had been called with a single encrypted message, Code Amber. Bloodline question. Chairman Park Jin-woo sat at the head of the table. To his right, Kim Minute-jae, the consigliere who handled legal frameworks and political connections. To his left, Director Yoon, who oversaw West Coast operations. Across from Park sat the two men whose futures hung most precariously in balance. Lee Sung-ho, the underboss. 4 to 6 years old, calculated and ambitious. He had orchestrated the expansion into tech sector money laundering. He had negotiated the treaty with the Mexican cartels that controlled distribution networks. For 8 years, he had operated under the assumption that when Chairman Park eventually stepped down or died, succession would flow to the most capable, most loyal, most proven leader. Him. Next to Lee sat Kang Dae-jung, head of enforcement and security. 50 years old, a veteran of the organization since he was 17. He had killed for Park. He had taken bullets for Park. He had buried secrets that could collapse empires. His loyalty was absolute, but his pragmatism was sharper. Park did not waste time. An elderly black woman approached me tonight claiming her granddaughter carries our bloodline mark. She provided details that should be impossible for an outsider to know. I've initiated verification protocol. Results within 36 hours. The room absorbed this in silence. Lee's face remained carefully neutral, but his fingers tapped once against the table. A micro-expression. Kang leaned back slightly, his mind already running security scenarios. Kim spoke first. How did she acquire the information? Her daughter had a relationship with someone 25 years ago. The timeline matches a period when I was instructed to remove a personal connection due to internal threats. I was told the pregnancy terminated. I did not verify. Director Yoon's eyebrows rose fractionally. You were told by who? My uncle. The previous chairman. The implications settled like sediment. The previous chairman had controlled information flow absolutely. If he had lied about a miscarriage, he had done so strategically. Perhaps to protect Park from emotional compromise during a violent succession war. Perhaps to prevent a premature heir from becoming a target. Or perhaps to maintain control by eliminating future competition. Lee spoke carefully. If verification confirms bloodline, succession protocol becomes complicated. It becomes clear, Park corrected. Blood outranks merit in our structure. It always has. With respect, Chairman, that structure was designed when heirs were raised within the organization. Trained. Tested. Proven. A 24-year-old girl with no knowledge of our world, no loyalty to our traditions, no understanding of what we are, she's a liability, not an heir. Park's expression did not change. Your concern is noted. But Lee was not finished. He had spent 8 years positioning himself. 8 years proving himself indispensable. 8 years building alliances with captains who controlled ports, gambling networks, and real estate fronts worth hundreds of millions. He had earned succession through blood spilled and profits delivered. This woman, Lee continued, voice level, appears at a public event. Speaks openly. Demonstrates knowledge of internal markers. That's not coincidence. That's strategy. Someone put her up to this. Kang's eyes sharpened. You think she's a plot? I think we have rivals who would benefit from destabilizing our succession plan. I think a girl with alleged bloodline and no training could be manipulated by external forces. I think this is either a very clever attack or a very dangerous accident. Park considered this. It was not impossible. Rival organizations had attempted more elaborate schemes. The Yakuza networks in Little Tokyo had reason to disrupt Korean operations. The Russian syndicate in West Hollywood had made territorial overtures that Park had rejected. Even internal factions might see opportunity in chaos. Which is why verification must be absolute, Park said. DNA from the girl. Comparison against bloodline samples. Medical records from the alleged mother. Investigation into anyone who knew about the relationship 25 years ago. And if it confirms? Kim asked quietly. Park met his gaze. Then we adapt. Adaptation risks fracture, Lee said. His tone remained respectful, but steel ran underneath. The captains have expectations. Succession has been implied. Changing course now raises questions about leadership stability. The captains follow bloodline tradition or they're removed, Park replied. We are not a democracy. We are not a meritocracy. We are a family business. And family means blood. The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Lee nodded once, but his jaw was tight. Kang remained motionless, reading the dynamic like a text he had studied for decades. Director Yoon broke the tension. Assuming verification confirms bloodline, what's the protection protocol? The girl is exposed. She's in public university. She's on social media. She's vulnerable. Immediate relocation under secure identity, Kang said automatically. Round-the-clock detail. Surveillance on known associates. Background checks on anyone in her circle. She'll notice, Kim pointed out. A 24-year-old suddenly surrounded by protection will ask questions. And if she asks the wrong people, we have exposure. Then she's told the truth, Park said. In controlled circumstances. By me. The room fell silent again. Telling her meant bringing her into the world. Bringing her into the world meant she became a target for anyone who opposed Park's leadership or saw opportunity in a naive air. Lee spoke again, his voice carefully measured. Chairman, I've served this organization for 22 years. I've generated over $400 million in revenue. I've eliminated threats both internal and external. I've earned the respect of every captain. If bloodline suddenly outweighs all of that, you're telling every capable man in this organization that merit means nothing. I'm telling them that tradition means everything, Park replied. You've built an impressive resume, Lee. But you knew the structure when you joined. Blood first. Loyalty second. Capability third. And if the blood is compromised? If she refuses? If she becomes a weapon used against us? Park's eyes went cold. Then she's removed. But that decision is mine. Not yours. Not the council's. Mine. The message was clear. Lee was being warned. Pushed too hard, questioned too loudly, and he would be the one removed, not the girl. Kang, ever the pragmatist, shifted the conversation. Security-wise, we have another problem. If this woman figured out the connection, our information security has failed. We need to identify the breach. Medical records, old surveillance photos, financial trails. Something leaked. Already in motion, Park said. I've tasked our cyber division with tracing her research path. Every website she visited. Every article she read. Every database she accessed. We'll know how she connected the dots within 12 hours. Kim added, we should also consider that the previous chairman may have left documentation. Records of the decision to separate you from the mother. Instructions regarding the reported miscarriage. If those records exist and fall into wrong hands, we have additional exposure. Park nodded. Retrieve all archived materials from my uncle's personal effects. Everything sealed after his death. I want it reviewed by end of week. Director Yoon looked troubled. This is going to spread internally. Emergency council at 2 a.m. doesn't stay secret. By sunrise, every captain will know something significant is happening. How do we control the narrative? We don't, Park said. We let speculation build. Then we deliver facts only when verification is complete. Uncertainty keeps people cautious. Caution prevents premature moves. Lee's fingers tapped the table again. Twice this time. A pattern of stress. And if verification fails? If she's not bloodline? Then Dorothy Williams and her granddaughter Maya disappear cleanly. Professional. No evidence. And we investigate who manufactured this disruption. And if verification confirms? Lee pressed. Park stood. The meeting was over. Then I have a daughter. And anyone who threatens her learns why I've held this position for 22 years. The men rose. Lee and Kang departed first, taking separate vehicles. Kim lingered briefly. He's going to move against her, Kim said quietly. I know. Will you let him? Park looked at his oldest advisor, the man who had helped him survive 3 coups and build an empire that generated over $1 billion annually. If he moves against bloodline, he moves against me. And that ends only one way. Kim nodded and left. Alone in the room, Park stood by the window overlooking Koreatown. Neon signs flickered in Korean script. Late-night restaurants served workers finishing shifts. Somewhere in this neighborhood, perhaps in a small apartment, a young woman named Maya Williams slept without knowing her blood carried a legacy that men would kill to claim or destroy. Park had built his empire on cold calculation. Emotion was weakness. Attachment was vulnerability. For 22 years, he had operated without the complication of family, without heirs to protect or use as leverage against him. Now, potentially, he had a daughter. And daughters, he knew, changed everything. Dr. Sarah Chen had performed DNA analysis for the organization before. Usually it involved paternity disputes among lower-level members. Occasionally it involved identifying remains. Never before had she been summoned at 4 in the morning by Director Yoon personally, driven to a private medical facility in Pasadena, and instructed that the results of this particular test would be seen by exactly 5 people and then destroyed. She worked alone in the lab. The samples had arrived in sealed containers. Sample A was labeled simply reference bloodline. Sample B was labeled subject Maya W. No other identifying information. No case number. No paper trail. Dr. Chen ran the analysis 3 times. Each result came back identical. She printed one copy, placed it in an envelope, sealed it with medical tape, and handed it directly to Director Yoon at 7:30 in the morning. "Speak to no one," Yoon said. It was not a threat. It was simply fact. Understood. By 9 a.m., Chairman Park Jin-woo sat in his private office in a downtown high-rise that served as headquarters for Park International Holdings, a legitimate tech investment firm that generated enough real profit to justify its existence. He opened the envelope alone. The technical language filled 2 pages, but the conclusion was clear. Probability of paternity, 99.97%. Maya Williams was his biological daughter. Park set the report down and looked out at the Los Angeles skyline. He felt nothing. That was the training. Emotion came later, in private, if at all. Right now, there was only protocol. He pressed a button on his desk phone. Send them in. Kim, Director Yoon, and Kang entered. Park handed each man the report. They read in silence. "It's confirmed," Park said. "She's mine." Kim spoke first. "The grandmother's claim is verified. We proceed to phase 2. Protection and investigation." Already in motion, Kang reported. "I've had a team on Maya Williams since the night of the gala. Apartment is under surveillance. Her daily pattern is documented. Classes, coffee shop where she studies, volunteer work at a homeless shelter downtown. She's clean. No criminal record. No suspicious associations. No indication she knows anything about you or the organization." "The grandmother?" Park asked. "Also clean. Retired school teacher. Lives in Inglewood. Church community. Knitting circle. She's exactly who she claims to be." Director Yoon added, "Our cyber team traced her research pattern. She started 3 months ago after Maya asked about the birthmark. She used public library computers to avoid home IP tracking. Smart. She researched Korean organized crime history, found academic papers on succession traditions, cross-referenced physical markers mentioned in old police reports from the 90s. Then she found your photo from a tech conference and connected facial recognition patterns to a man her daughter photographed 25 years ago. She kept the photograph. It's in her apartment." Park processed this. Dorothy Williams had been methodical. Careful. Intelligent. She had not acted impulsively. The photograph is a vulnerability. Retrieve it. Already done, Yoon confirmed. We also swept her apartment for any other documentation. Removed her computer hard drive. Replaced it with an identical model with clean browsing history. She'll notice eventually, but by then it won't matter. She expected this, Kim observed. She came to you knowing would invade her privacy. She calculated that protecting her granddaughter was worth the cost. Park nodded slowly. Which means she's smarter than most men I employ. What about historical verification? The mother's medical records. Kang pulled out a tablet and displayed scanned documents. Christine Williams gave birth at County USC Medical Center in March of 2000. Single mother. No father listed on the birth certificate. Hospital records show a healthy delivery. Mother and child discharged after 2 days. I cross-referenced this with our archives from that period. In January of 2000, you did instruct a separation from a woman named Christine. Your uncle's records confirm he told you the pregnancy terminated in February. But there's no medical documentation of any miscarriage in our files. Because there was none, Park said quietly. He lied. Why? Director Yoon asked. Control. Or protection. Or both. He knew an heir would become a target during the succession war. Perhaps he thought removing the vulnerability protected me. Perhaps he thought a grandson would eventually threaten his own position. I'll never know. He's been dead for 15 years. Kim leaned forward. This raises a larger question. If your uncle falsified the miscarriage report, who else knew? Who helped him maintain the deception? Because someone had to have monitored Christine Williams. Someone had to have known she carried the pregnancy to term. Park's expression darkened. Find out. Anyone still alive who was involved in that decision needs to be interviewed. Carefully. Kang made a note. There's one other complication. The surveillance team reports that Maya Williams has been approached twice in the past week by someone claiming to be a graduate student researching Korean-American community integration. The contact felt staged. We're identifying the individual now. Park's hands stilled on the desk. Someone else is investigating her. Or testing her, Kim suggested. Seeing if she knows anything. Seeing if she's vulnerable to recruitment or manipulation. Lee, Director Yoon said flatly. We don't know that, Kang countered, but his tone carried doubt. Park stood and walked to the window. Below, Los Angeles moved through its morning routines. Millions of people unaware that in boardrooms and back offices, men were deciding fates based on blood and tradition and calculations measured in lives instead of dollars. Bring me everything on Lee's movements over the past 2 weeks, Park said. Phone records, travel, meetings, financial transactions. If he's moving against bloodline, I need to know before he commits fully. And the girl? Kang asked. Park turned. She's upgraded to active protection. Assign your best team. No contact unless necessary. If anyone approaches her aggressively, they're detained and brought to me. No exceptions. She'll notice the protection eventually, Kim warned again. Then we accelerate the timeline. I'll speak with her directly. The room went still. Director Yoon's eyebrows rose. When? This weekend. Private location. The grandmother will facilitate the introduction. Maya will be told she's meeting a family friend. Then I'll tell her the truth. That's a risk, Kim said carefully. She could reject you. She could go to authorities. She could panic and do something unpredictable. She could, Park agreed. But she won't. Because she's my daughter. And blood recognizes blood. It was not sentiment. It was calculation based on genetics and observation. Maya Williams volunteered at a homeless shelter. She studied social work. She had been raised by a grandmother who had the courage to walk into a room full of dangerous men and demand protection. That kind of person did not panic. That kind of person assessed and adapted. She was, Park realized, more like him than he had anticipated. Set it up, Park ordered. Saturday afternoon. Neutral location. Make it look like a casual lunch. Dorothy brings Maya. I arrive separately. We have the conversation that changes her life. The men nodded and began to leave. Kang paused at the door. Chairman, if she refuses the protection and insists on living her normal life, what then? Park considered the question. A daughter who refused to acknowledge him. Who wanted nothing to do with the organization. Who chose social work over succession. Then she's watched from a distance, Park said. Protected without her knowledge. Never approached. Never claimed. But never unguarded. And Lee? If he moves against her anyway? Park's voice dropped to the tone that preceded executions. Then he learns that some lines, once crossed, erase everything that came before. Loyalty, history, mercy, all of it gone. Kang nodded and left. Alone again, Park returned to the DNA report. He read it once more, committing the details to memory before feeding it into a shredder built into his desk. The paper disintegrated into particles small enough to be unrecoverable. But the truth remained. He had a daughter, 24 years old, studying to help people, unaware that her blood made her royalty in a kingdom built on violence and silence. And somewhere in the organization he had built, someone was already planning how to use her or destroy her before she became a problem. Park opened his desk drawer and removed a photograph he had not looked at in 25 years. Christine Williams. Young. Smiling. Holding his hand in a park somewhere. He had kept this single photograph against every security protocol. A weakness he had never admitted to anyone. Now he understood why he had kept it. Some part of him had known. Some part of him had hoped. He placed the photograph back in the drawer and locked it. Hope was dangerous. Hope made men vulnerable. Hope got people killed. But protection was practical. And Park Jin-woo had built an empire on being extremely practical about keeping what belonged to him. Maya Williams, whether she knew it yet or not, belonged to his bloodline. And nothing touched bloodline without consequences that echoed for generations. The restaurant was in Malibu, deliberately chosen for its distance from Koreatown and its reputation as a place where celebrities ate without attracting attention. Saturday afternoon sunlight filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Pacific. The host recognized Dorothy Williams from the reservation and seated her at a private corner table. Maya Williams sat across from her grandmother, confused but patient. She was tall, her father's genetics evident in her bone structure and the particular shape of her eyes. She wore simple jeans and a Ukla sweatshirt. Her hair was pulled back. No makeup. She looked younger than 24. "Grandma, you're being weird," Maya said, half smiling. "Since when do we do fancy lunches in Malibu?" Dorothy's hands trembled slightly as she poured water from the carafe. "There's someone I need you to meet, baby. Someone important." "Important how?" Before Dorothy could answer, Park Jin-woo appeared. He wore civilian clothes, dark jeans and a button-down shirt, deliberately casual. To anyone watching, he was simply an older Korean man joining acquaintances for lunch. No security visible, though Kang's team was positioned throughout the restaurant and the parking lot. He stopped at the table. Made eye contact with Dorothy first. She nodded once. Permission granted. Then he looked at his daughter. Maya looked back with mild curiosity. No recognition. No fear. Just polite attention to whoever her grandmother wanted her to meet. "Maya," Dorothy said quietly, "this is Park Jin-woo." Maya extended her hand automatically. "Nice to meet you." Park shook her hand. Her grip was firm. Confident. "May I sit?" "Sure," Maya said, glancing at her grandmother for context that wasn't coming.